Hello and welcome to another episode of Becco Movies, where I'm going to talk about the filmography of Zack Snyder, who's an American director who's directed a lot of movies, mainly comic book movies. But a lot of people know him for obviously his DC movies, but he's directed other movies as well, in addition to his DC movies. So I'm going to start with the obvious one, which is Dawn of the Dead, and this is coming from a guy who's not even a zombie movies expert or a big fan of zombie movies, but I still think it was a good movie. The whole start thing, the movie starts really fast with the zombies and everything, and the child, and you know how it ends. It's a really good movie. I wouldn't say that it's for everyone because, like I said, it's a zombie movie. Not everyone likes these kind of movies. But it's an interesting movie visually, and he's always liked zombie movies. That's why he did That's why he did Army of the Dead later on. But he's always had this kind of unique visual style, because as far as I know, he studied art. I think it was in London, in college in London. So he's always been obsessed with the human anatomy. That's why, as you can see from his later movies, that he's obsessed with the female and the male anatomy. He always makes men look masculine and females look, women look feminine, etc. So he's got an interesting visual style, and again, say what you want about the guy, but he's got an interesting visual style, and it shows in all his movies. It's an interesting one to be his first movie, Dawn of the Dead. You know what I mean? You would expect a comic book movie to be his first one, but you know how it is in Hollywood. When they offer you something really interesting and you like it, you might as well take the job. So this was his first movie, Dawn of the Dead. The other one, that's one of my favorite movies, obviously 300, which even if you talk to people who are not fans of comic book movies, they would say this is a good movie. It is an interesting movie where 300 warriors from Sparta in Greece fight the whole Persian army. And I've always loved this kind of story where a small number of people fights a large number of people and they still win, or at least delay the invasion, or delay these invaders, etc. They say trying their best. It's an interesting movie visually, and it's R-rated obviously. So it's not one of these movies where you can watch with anyone. So it's R-rated. It is gory, but the visual style is very interesting. And Gerald Butler was perfect. The whole Sparta speech, and tonight we die in hell. This is Sparta. Excellent movie to watch, especially if you've got a large screen TV, Ultra HD. It looks really good. And this is the movie that changed the game basically for the comic book movie genre. I know it's not a comic movie, but the way that it was shot, it looks like a comic book movie, isn't it? Which brings me to my next movie. And if, by the way, when people say, well, Snyder is this and that, he's not that popular, so why didn't the sequel become as popular? Although, by the way, again, this is my own personal opinion, I think the sequel, which was called 300 Rays of, what was it, Rays of an Empire, Rays of a Nation, Rise of an Empire, it was a good sequel. It just didn't have Gerald Butler, it didn't have Zack Snyder, it didn't have that sauce, as they say, so it wasn't as successful. But visually, I think the sequel was good. Which brings us next to Watchmen, which again, look, obviously Snyder did 3 DC movies, and I'll speak to them briefly. But Watchmen is one of the best comic book movies made ever. This movie was ahead of its time. Whether it's the story, the visuals, the score, and let's not forget, what's the most important thing about superhero movies? In addition to having a good story, it's the costume design. And who designed the costumes, you might ask, for Watchmen? Yeah, Michael freaking Wilkinson. That's why the costume design looks amazing. And for me, I always like updated modern superheroes, but the interesting thing about Watchmen, it's not just it has a dark take, and the whole deconstructing superheroes and everything, which I don't mind it as long as it's used wisely. And this movie is obviously based on the Miller, what was his name, the guy who wrote some comics. They are dark and gritty, so it's all about deconstructing these heroes. This movie was amazing, man. Whether it's the fight scenes, the visuals, the casting, Rorschach. I mean, come on, man. And this is what I want if Snyder ever was going to do the Dark Knight Returns. Just look at Watchmen visually. And look at Batman v Superman team wise, the cinematography, the costume design, which is again Michael Wilkinson. If you get these people together who worked on Watchmen and BVS, you would get the best The Dark Knight Returns movie ever made, and will reach a billion, if not 1.5 billion in the box office. Going back to Watchmen, again, amazing movie. I know there's if you know Snyder by now, he's always has his cut and the studio cut, if you want to call it that way. I watched if you can call it the Snyder cut for Watchmen. It's good. It has the animation in the middle, a little bit distracting, but again, amazing movie, a little bit long. But it is as comic book movie as it gets. But the most important thing that you have to know, it's about deconstructing your superhero. So if you don't like the idea of deconstructing the superhero, this movie is not for you. Then this is an interesting, again, Snyder has very interesting choice, as we can see, from zombie movies to 300 to comic book movie in Watchmen to Legends of the Guardians, the Owl of Ga'Hoole, however you want to spell this. I remember watching this movie years ago, before I even know who Snyder is and this and that. I thought it was a very interesting take on the animation. Animation looks gorgeous, by the way. And the whole thing of one becomes evil, the other owls are good. And it has a lot of kind of fascism and Nazi, I think, imagery and this and that. So it's a very interesting movie to look at it, even from the animation point of view. It looks really good. And it's an interesting choice for a guy who did a zombie movie, comic book movie, epic historical drama like 300. And then Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch, it's basically going into the mind of a woman who's supposed to be being abused and all this stuff. It's an interesting movie visually. I'm not going to say it's my favorite Zack Snyder movie. Probably the least favorite, Nothing against the movie. Like I said, visually it's amazing. It's a very interesting choice. Again, visually, as usual, the Snyder he delivers. The women look really good, really hot in the movie, which is fine. If you like this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a good movie, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite. But Sucker Punch is really good. And apparently there's again a director's cut. So who knows? And obviously then we have his DC trilogy, which is Man of Steel about Superman, and Batman v Superman, which is basically Batman v Superman. And then Zack Snyder Justice League, which is an epic DC movie about the Justice League. And I love the fact that some idiots say, well, why did Warner Brothers choose Snyder to direct these DC movies? And and anyone who asks this question, you should just tell them, have you watched his filmography? I mean, look at these five simple options, by the way. Even if you ignore the Dawn of the Dead, even if you ignore the animation one, the Legends of the Guardians, even if you ignore Sucker Punch, Watchmen and 300 are basically comic book properties. 300 is basically Frank Miller, if I'm not mistaken, and Watchmen, I keep forgetting his name, the other guy who does comics. These are two comic book properties, and very famous ones, by the way. So it's not surprising they chose him to direct their DC movies. And again, he did an excellent job. And another reminder that who designed the costumes for Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League? Michael freaking Wilkinson. And of course, you've got Zack Snyder scoring Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, which is two of my favorite movie scores of all time. The movie afterwards, Army of the Dead, again, another zombie movie, and it's a different take on zombie movies. I remember there was a zombie horse and a zombie tiger. Yeah, I mean, it's just when Netflix do movies, I'm just not a big fan of Netflix. They do have low budgets. The movie looks amazing. It's a very good zombie movie. I'm not a big fan of zombie movies. Again, Snyder likes them. It's his IP. It's his, movies. He can direct whatever he wants. But I think he should focus on comic book movies. As you can see from this list, he excels in comic book movies. And if you look at 300, Watchmen, and the three movies of DC trilogy, these 5 movies, man, comic book movies, you cannot get any better comic book movie than these 5 movies. Especially visually, everything. Fight scenes, everything. And of course, he had the Rebel Moon. Again, this is with Netflix. I've watched them. I know some people hate them. And there's obviously the director's cut of part 1 and 2 of Rebel Moon. I thought they were fine because they were supposed to be Star Wars movies. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I think he tried with these movies, considering it's Netflix. The visuals are amazing as usual, but the story needed maybe better writers. This is my own honest opinion. So when you look at this list, you know that Zack Snyder was born to direct one and one genre more than anything else. It's the comic book movie genre, because you cannot get better than 300, Watchmen, Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League. You just cannot. Unless he directs The Dark Knight Returns, I think this is the main movie that could put these movies to the other side, as in stand aside. This is what I'm talking about. But still, they are amazing movies. But if he does The Dark Knight Returns properly, which is a Frank Miller comic, of course, with Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, if he gets Hans Zimmer to score, Michael Wilkinson to design the costumes, we're talking at least $1 to $1.5 billion. And hopefully they'll do it. Hopefully they'll do it. So yeah, this is why Zack Snyder is a perfect director for DC and for comic book movies in general. He has an excellent visual style when he shoots his movies. His fight scenes are amazing. The writing, it all depends on the writer. If you have a good writer, like with any other director, you would have an amazing movie. So yeah, let's give Zack Snyder a chance. Let him do a couple of more DC movies, comic book movies. And later on, if he wants to do Marvel, Dark Horse, whatever, let him do it, man. I think he's an amazing director. Nobody's saying he should direct every comic book movie, but if you want something that would give you epic visuals, amazing fight scenes, amazing costume designs, Zack Snyder is the guy. And yes, restore the Snyderverse. Becku movies out.